Hi there. Welcome to Bible Slash Chat. Kevin, hello.
How are you, John?
I'm excellent.
Good.
I'm wearing my DeWalt shirt.
Nice.
Not Dutch.
Ready to do some
Could
work?
be Dutch.
Could be.
DeWalt.
Yeah.
Sounds Dutch.
I mean, De
Tools.
Yeah, De Vries.
See, exactly.
Yeah, there you go.
De Vries.
Could be.
The Dutch people are tools.
Somebody.
Okay, anyway. Sorry. Okay, so we have a question. This is the best I can do. We have a question about losing your salvation. This is actually a very tricky one. There's some texts that sound as though you can lose your salvation, and there are other texts in the Bible that sound like you can't lose your salvation. The one I want to look at today, we can look at more, but the one I want to look at today is Romans 11:22. And actually, just for the sake of context, I'm going to read starting in verse 19. He says, "You will say then branches are broken off so that I might be grafted in." So he's talking about the nation of Israel and the Abrahamic covenant. He says that we as Gentiles are wild olive branches. We're grafted into the Abrahamic covenant. Verse 20, he says, "Quite right, they were broken off for their unbelief, but you stand by your faith. Do not be conceited, but fear, for if God did not spare the natural branches, he will not spare you either." So you have this like borderline threat there. Verse 22, "Behold then the kindness and severity of God to those who fell, severity, but to you God's kindness, if you continue in his kindness, otherwise you also will be cut off." Okay, so does that mean that we, each of us individually, can be cut off from Christ, from the Abrahamic covenant, from the blessings, through unbelief? Can we lose our salvation through unbelief?
Yeah, so the second way you said it, is losing your salvation, which of course is not true. It's not possible. Jesus teaches that in John 10. He says, no one's able to snatch my people out of my hand, right? When God gives them to me, like I lose none of them.
Right.
So he himself teaches this.
Right.
Paul talks about the same thing, Philippians 1:6, "He who began a good work in you will perfect it until the day of Christ." So as far as speaking salvifically, if we look at things spiritually, we look at that God is the one who saves, and that's guaranteed for his people.
Yeah.
Looking through our own eyeballs, though, like Paul is to the church in Rome, he doesn't know who is actually saved and who's not. He doesn't have a fully, spiritual X-ray vision of their heart. So he's speaking in a visual sense of who appears to be connected to the branch.
Got it.
Which is why there's this, if you continue in his kindness, otherwise you also will be cut off.
Right.
And a helpful interpretive reference point for this is John 15, where Jesus is talking about himself as the vine, his Father as the vine grower. And then he talks about branches in him who are somehow associated with him. And he says, "Every branch that's in me that does not bear fruit, the Father comes and cuts it away, and it gets burned." And so the question is, did that person lose their salvation?
Right.
We would say, based upon the earlier teachings in John, absolutely not. But Jesus also teaches that there are people who hang out with him or demonstrate some sort of external commitment or relationship with Jesus that's not ultimately a saving relationship with Jesus. So the text there where Jesus is speaking to his disciples in John 15:3, and he says, "You guys are clean because of the word which I've spoken to you." In John 13, he has washed the disciples clean. It's the same word, but he says, "Not all of you are clean," and he's referring to Judas. So Judas is the case in point of somebody who is walking with Jesus, talking with Jesus, on the tour posters with Jesus, and he's not actually spiritually related to Jesus. So Paul is using a lot of similar ideas here in Romans 11, where he's talking about an agricultural picture, branches, similar things, but he's just kind of giving that picture of, he's trying to address their arrogance, and which is unbelief. And he's saying, be careful. Just because of your outward profession, let's say you get baptized on a church membership roll, that doesn't mean you're saved, and you can't be arrogant. So you have to maintain faith and humility.
Faith in Christ, in the kindness of God in Christ. Okay, so super helpful. I'll accept the Jesus having tour posters thing, but super helpful up until then. Okay, so if we just visualize Paul, he's writing this letter to a church, a corporate gathering of saints. But in that visible church there in Rome, there are some who are not believers. We would presume, probably.
Yeah.
So you have a group of people. They're all professing believers. Most of them probably are believers, but then some of them maybe are not believers. And so Paul is addressing the whole crowd and saying, "Hey, all of you, be aware. This is what it means to be a true believer. And if you don't hold on to that faith, you don't continue to believe, then you will be cut off. You'll lose that. So in other words, like he's calling them out in a sense, warning them about having true faith.
Right.
Okay. Super helpful.
Yeah.
So again, if I'm reading this, should I be afraid that God will cut me off?
No.
Why not?
Well, I think if you're reading Romans and you see the glory of the gospel, you know, it goes in to say, in Romans 12, in view of the mercies of God, you know, like, so you're seeing it, he's assuming that if you're reading this, you are seeing this. And he's even speaking to these people, assuming they have faith. He says it right before he says, you stand by your faith, you know? And so he's banking on the fact that they are believing the gospel he's giving them. And so basically like, that's the judgment of charity that he's giving them as being believers.
Yeah, good. Okay, so then the evaluation I should make of myself is, do I believe in the kindness of God for me through Christ? Do I believe in the mercies of God? Do I believe that Jesus died for my sins? If that's true, and I do, then I don't need to fear.
Right.
So the warning when it encounters true faith falls to the side. The warning when it encounters not real faith then should indicate that that person isn't a true believer.
Right.
Okay, so then what would we say about a person who isn't a true believer, is a professing person in the church, and then falls away? What do we say about them? Is there a text or a verse, Kevin, that would give us instruction about what that is?
Like Hebrews 6?
Well, I was actually thinking 1 John 2:19.
1 John 2:19.
Yeah. But we could do Hebrews 6 too, but it's a little more complex. This is a long video.
1 John 2:19. So let me get there. Yeah, he says, he's speaking to the church, and he says there was a group of people who went out from us. They were of us. So they were, I should not say that. I should say they looked as if they were with us.
Yeah,
rather.
They were participants.
Yes. They were visually members of the covenant community of God. So they went out from us, but they were not really of us, he said. For if they were genuinely of us, they would have remained with us. But they went out so that it would be manifested that they are not all of us. Which is basically John 15, when it's what the vine grower is doing with his pruning blade. He's pruning things, pruning away branches. He's causing those divisions in the church to happen, like in 1 John 2:19. Same author even, the Apostle John. And so you see that and you realize, okay, that's God's way of purifying the witness of the church.
Yeah.
Really.
Manifesting those ones who are not actually true believers.
Right.
Through various means.
Yeah.
But they depart from the church, which shows that they never were part of the church to begin with.
Which is super interesting because they might have the outward habits of praising God and things, but God is concerned with his actual glory being manifested.
Yeah.
You know, rather than like people who are faking it.
Yeah.
Like, and just like giving lip service or things like that. God is actually concerned with the church genuinely enjoying him.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting to see his own commitment to his glory brings him to prune these people away.
Yeah, super helpful. Okay, good. Well, we might do more of these verses because these are super helpful. I think it's good to analyze these from a really textual perspective. All right, well, I hope that's helpful for you. And if you have any questions on this or any other topic, you can always email us at info@faithbibleoc.org. Thanks so much.